We live high in the Rocky Mountains, as you can see, and it gets very cold here in the winter. And it's really nice to have a really good heating system for your house because it takes a lot of heat to keep yourself warm here. So as you move along and see the mountains, you'll see this house nestled in the mountains and with solar heating, 100% solar heated home, but that takes active solar heating. On the top of the roof you see 7 solar thermal panels. Those are not electric, those are hot water panels. And then you see below a bunch of passive solar windows across the entire span of the house. Most people will say that's too much glass, but I'll explain later when we go inside why that's not necessarily true. To explain about the system from the biggest point of view possible is that those windows cover the entire south side. The east, west, and north walls are made of rammed earth. We'll get to that in a minute. But I want to show you about the strategy of the heating, which is that those panels on the roof are not PV or solar electric. Those are hot water panels. I call them solar thermal. That's what we call it in the business. Solar thermal panels. What they do is all day long they pump water with a single pump through the entire adobe floor, which stores it for the nighttime. So the strategy is that during the day, we have mostly sunny days here. So during the day, the sun shines in the window and that takes care of any heating, no matter how cold it is outside. But when the sun goes down, the heat that was stored in the floor from the 7 solar panels up there, 4x8 solar thermal panels, that heat has migrated up through 7 inches of adobe and earth floor. And now at sundown, when there's no more sun coming in the windows, that heat starts to radiate up from the floor. So that's how you take care of 24-hour heating, with a combination of active solar system, which means you're using a pump to drive the fluid around from the collection point to the storage point. And then the passive is you just let the sunshine in the windows. A really nice improvement on that whole thing would be to, I'll show you when we go inside, would be to insulate all those windows at night with a really solid insulation. Then you wouldn't have to burn any wood. One of the emphasis I had when I moved here, because of starting to learn a lot about sustainability and embedded energy in building materials, in other words, how much energy did it take to create and manufacture and transport the materials to the site, I decided that I would switch my mind thinking around to try to see how much local materials were available. So this is an example of local material. This log has not traveled far to get to this house, maybe 30 miles. We'll add 20 more because he went up in the mountains to get it. So that saves a lot on hauling lumber from Pacific Northwest and whatnot. And plus, these are all standing dead. It's not from a farm or cutting raw, virgin forest. Nice thing about using earth materials is you can have niches, adobe or cob or earth bags. You can make niches. And so I made this niche at the spur of the moment when we were forming this up. And then I had a Mexican worker who used to go down to down to San Antonio or El Paso on his days off, and he brought me back this nice little traditional Mexican pot to put in, so I put it in there. Awesome. Everything was like spontaneous. So these walls, if you measure this wall, it will be 30 inches thick. And so this is the model for the east wall, the north wall, and the west wall. So then the south wall is all glass and timber. Timber frame, you call this timber frame. Okay, about the glass, it's the cheapest unit you can buy because it's a patio door replacement size, which is 34 inches by 76 inches. That is the most manufactured and the most purchased for suburban homes for sliding glass doors. So you buy that to get the cheapest per square foot of glass because it's the most manufactured. The long side of the house is like this. And what you want to do is find true solar south. And there's various ways to do that. Not necessarily by your watch or a compass, because the compass is magnetic north, not solar south. So the first thing you do is you find that. Well, in this house, I moved it a little bit to the east because I want the morning sun to favor, because things are cold and you want to heat it up. It also moves the windows out of the setting sun in the summertime. So just kick it a little bit, 10, 12, 13 degrees east of south, in order to favor the morning sun and occlude the afternoon hot rays. So you want to have maximum exposure, but not overdoing it. You don't want a long corridor in your house. So once you see where the south is, you stretch out the long side of the house, and the ratio of the long side of the house to the short side of the house, you get a rectangle, and the rule of thumb for the aspect ratio is 2:1. In other words, the long side of the house is twice the depth of the house. That way, you give a chance for the passive solar windows to reach far into the house. And you spread them out so they collect more solar energy because they're facing south. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the aspect ratio, 2:1. In these cold winters, I have never used more than 3 wheelbarrows of wood for the whole winter. Last winter was a little bit mild, and I only used 1 wheelbarrow.
Wow.
I'm not afraid to put on a down vest, or a sweater, but so this house does not have any backup heating except a wood stove.
Wow.
So wood stove. So I burn wood when it's cold and cloudy. Where do I get the wood? I harvest the wood off this land. You see, trees are always dying and then growing new. And so these trees take about 30 years to grow. So where do I get my 3 wheelbarrows of wood is from the wood on this property. And the why I call it 100% solar is that I don't have any you don't see a big propane tank sitting out in the yard here like you see on every other house. I didn't want that. I wanted to be totally off of fossil fuels. So what I noticed was that a tree here takes around 30 years to grow. I don't mind calling it 100%, even though solar-wise, the daily sun, I have a motto, use today's sun today instead of ancient sunlight that's stored in the ground as fossil fuels. These trees take 30 years to regenerate. So you're using 30-year-old sun in a wooden log rather than 30 million years old sun in a fossil fuel, in a cubic foot of gas, propane gas or oil or coal or whatever. So that's still renewable and sustainable because the trees grow. See how many dead trees there? It'll take me 5-10 years to all those dead trees you see out there to burn all those.
Wow.
So it's totally contained here. I don't have I need any outside energy. So that big furnace in the sky is no need to say more. So when you come in, you'll see that the floors,
All earthen.
all earthen floors. A lot of people worry about what to put on them. I've seen some pretty damaged floors. This floor is not damaged at all after 15 years. The reason why is you have to study up and read how to do these things because it's a folk art almost to make floors. They used to put ox blood. And today we use linseed oil. So this floor has first of all, it has a plastic layer because you have a creek out just out back here, and the groundwater can get moisture and bring it up. So I first put 2 layers of polyethylene and then only 1 inch of foam because I wanted the earth to store some of the heat too. And then pipes in the floor, serpentine, and a reverse, what's called a reverse serpentine pattern, which only the professionals know. And I always ask a lot of questions, so that's how I pick up knowledge. So then there's that. Then there's 5 inches of road base from the nearby gravel pit run by Kenny Skoglund. So 5 inches of road base, just the same stuff that's in the road, so it's not cheap, it's not expensive. So you have the great volume of materials in this house come from less than 10 miles away, more or less.
That's local.
That's local. So you have 5 inches of road base, and then I got a crew of guys that like to do troweling, and we mixed up a bunch of mud according to a recipe that I tested, and we have 2 inches of adobe on top of that. Then when the adobe dried, I came with roller and put 3 coats, 1 a week, of linseed oil and mineral spirits to let it soak in. Before I did that, I did a test block. I made a square thing and I made a test, and I put that on there. And then after a while, I took the test out and I cut it in half. And I looked at the profile to see And what it is, it's just like linoleum. In fact, linoleum got its name because they used to make linoleum out of linseed oil. Linoleum. And now they're doing it again in the sustainability market. So then, maybe 10 years later, I still wasn't satisfied with the floor because it was hard to mop because it had a little bit of roughness on it. So I made, on that stove over there, I cooked up beeswax and linseed oil in a percentage that I tested. And then I took these very stiff floor brushes, and while it was still hot, because it turned solid, while it was still liquid, I would dump it on the floor and do this. So it has 2 layers of that. I had people helping me with that. But that puts a nice, you cannot penetrate this with water. And it's really difficult to damage it. Women with high heels could walk in here and it wouldn't hurt the floor. People always say that, adobe floors, high heels.
Yeah.
Good thing there aren't too many high heels in Crestone.
Right.
For 10 years, I had nothing but leftover wood for the cabinets in the kitchen. As much as I could scrape together, just leftover 2x4s, leftover forms for the rammed earth. And so after 10 years, I saved enough money to be able to buy, I got a good deal on these cabinets, so I ordered them.
Nice.
And I put them in myself. I never did that before, but I did it. Then I found it, my daughter found a place in Denver that imported soapstone from India and from Brazil. So this comes right out of the ground.
Wow.
And they saw it and they
Beautiful.
polish it. So these are made out of a 1-inch steel pipe.
Wow.
I actually found this in somebody's backyard in Boulder. I mean, up in the mountains in Boulder. They weren't using it. And then I bought a piece of, I think this is 5/16 steel plate. And I had a friend who was a welder, cut me 4 inches by 4 inches, and then welded onto the back. First of all, I did a study of rammed earth all over the world to find out different ways to build a rammed earth wall. Finally, after looking in New Zealand and Australia, videos about those buildings down there, and in California, they do a lot of rammed earth. So I finally decided on the California method. There were other methods. So the California method is where you set up 2 4x8 plywood sheets. I set them 30 inches apart because the walls are 30 inches thick, as you can see. The wall goes from here all the way to here.
Jeez.
So this is 30 inches. But I still didn't trust in this climate that 30 inches of earth would be sufficient insulation in the winter. So down the middle, I put, as we rammed it, I put 2 inches of extruded styrofoam, the pink and blue stuff, in there. And then every 4 feet, I tied it back with 6/6-10-10 concrete floor mesh. So it's basically 2 walls separated by 2 inches of insulation.
Wow.
So we made these forms out of special plywood, concrete forms, like expensive plywood. Cost almost $100 a sheet. And it cost $60 then, but I think it costs $100 now, or close to it. And we tied them together with, let me get one more thing to show you. So this is called a pony clamp. Cabinet makers use these all the time. So you can adjust anything you want. So we would take the form and put 2x12 boards running this way, like a ladder, like a steps, and then tie them together with this. Like put one out there on one side of the steps, so to speak, and that's there's the stairs, the 2x12 boards on edge keep it from bowing out.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll also get your ladder so you can walk up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tied together with this thing. So you fit this, and then you tighten it here. So you have a nice contained box, so to speak. People get in the box. I would bring the dirt, bring it to the mixer, and then from the mixer, we bring it over and dump it in the forms. So for 1 whole month, I drove a skid steer every day, 8 to 10 hours. That's how long it took to make all these walls.
looks like.
This is the radiant floor in the domestic hot water system. And you see it says an error. This is a differential thermostat, and it's not even noontime yet, and the domestic hot water tank is satisfied, so it shuts the system down for the rest of the day. So in the winter it's going all day long, but in the summer we only use it for half a day. But this is an automatic. I designed and I had a friend build this. These are relays, and this is a differential thermostat, and this whole system runs on one pump. In other words, in the morning the pump turns on when the collectors are hot, starts pumping water into the floor. I'm talking about winter. And then at noontime, you can set all this by these. You can program this control box. This is a diverter valve, so it's going into the floor all morning, and then at noon, this is time to switch over and send the heat into this tank, which is a tank within a tank. So the solar heat goes around the outside, and the domestic hot water is contained in a tank in the inside. So this is an industrial product, and so when I want to take a shower in the summer, it's always hot enough to take as many showers as you want. But in the winter, cold weather, it might drop down to 90 degrees. And you don't want to take a shower at 90 degrees unless you're in Bali or someplace. So I purchased a little Stiebel Eltron electric unit, 220 volt, and it's a modulating unit. And so whatever the temperature, let's say the temperature is 100 degrees coming out of this tank, before it goes to the shower, it'll boost it up to 114, which is what I like for my shower.
Almost like a little on-demand type of deal.
It is an on-demand,
Yeah.
but it's modulating. It boosts it whatever it needs.
Gives it the extra
And you can set
temperature.
the high point. Now we must go in here because I want to show you. The
Yeah.
idea is that, see, a lot of these interior walls are also rammed earth. The bathroom wall, the greenhouse wall, at different thicknesses. That's a 12-inch thick wall. The bathroom wall is 12 inches. And then this wall, it divides right down the middle of the house. Half the house is over there and half over there. This is 16 inches wide. So as I was building this house, had all the outside walls, and then it suddenly dawned on me when I got about halfway up to here to build the interior wall that it's a plastic material. You can sculpt it. You can do anything you want with it.
Yeah.
I said, well, I didn't know what kind of door I wanted, and it just dawned on me, why not build an art store? So I got some materials and I built a huge form, and this guy's helping me. We rolled it into place and we set it down, and I wanted it to be sunken into the floor, and so that was formed up, and we just rammed.
Cool.
So
That's awesome.
so that's like some of the things you can do. And then the windowsills, the top of the rammed earth walls are a little bit gravelly, so I put cement windowsills. What I would like to do to finish this house, so that it wouldn't need any wood, I would like to get a very large, highly insulated curtain that I can pull over this way and this way, all the way from floor to ceiling, and shut this entire window thing out because that dumps so much heat at night.
In the wintertime, yeah.
Don't forget, the winter days are warm and sunny, and the winter nights are twice as cold and twice as long. So you spend a third of the day collecting sun, and then you spend 2/3 dumping it out these windows, which are not good insulators. And I've tried bead walls, blowing beads inside of windows on a house in Boulder, different drop-down things on another spec house in Boulder. So we were in the innovative stage back in the 70s and 80s, coming up with different kinds of window insulation. It's very much needed. And when fuel gets more expensive, there will be another period of innovation in terms of making an inexpensive or affordable night insulation. We call it movable insulation or nighttime insulation. Very cost effective because so much heat pours out those windows at night. So again, timber from locally for the lintels on all the windows. The bridge across, these wide, across the doors, all sawn right on site, but this guy had a big 6-foot saw.
Wow. Cool Vegas.
Wow.
So these figures again are part of the local scene with Eddie Drake and his timber operation 20 miles away. And on top of that is SIPS panels. As we were building the rammed earth walls, as we got near the top, you can imagine these guys being inside with these heavy rammers I showed you.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, boom. And the earth starts to get heavy when you get up to 9 feet.
Yeah.
So one night I was waking up in the morning and I said, I'm not going up another story with this. We don't have the means for that.
Mhm.
So it just dawned on me, straw bale. Because all I really needed was an insulated box up here.
Right.
I do all the collection down there.
Right.
So I ordered up a truckload of straw bales and we continued.
And that's what this looks like. You got a scratch coat kind of going still on the.
Yeah, the guy named Aha,
Yep.
who does really good plans, he's coming next month and we're going to put a finish coat on.
Is that where the straw bale starts? Right where that seam is? That
Straw,
line?
no, that's just a different application.
Oh, okay.
See how thick it is? You can see the north wall is thick. It also has a circuit of hot water running through the north wall into the
Wow.
bathroom.
Wow.
These are pipes like the pipes in the floor.
Mm-hmm.
I carved this out because I needed to get another wire up here afterwards. But you can see how thick the north wall is. I asked them to put it on extra thick.
Hmm.
So it's more than an inch thick there.
That's cool.
Inch and a half maybe.
I've never seen it in the walls.
Yeah,
I've never seen
yeah,
it.
radiant wall
Yeah, that's
instead of a
cool.
radiant floor. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can do that. There's no problem. So, so this is a rough, like you say, a scratch coat, and I need to put some trim up here, like you see on the other side.
Sure.
There's trim,
Yeah.
and I like to keep it a little bit lumpy to give the quality of the straw.
Yeah.
So, Aha is going to come and put on a 1/2-inch coat, and I'll be working with him, and he'll have his worker. But this is a little trim piece that needs to go over there, and so the mud will come up here and just catch into that expanded metal lath. One thing I compromised by putting that big window up there, because from here you can see the mountains, and I didn't particularly want to give that up. But in the winter, I have a double insulated shade that comes down over that all winter long, day and night.
Wow.
Nice.
But in the summer, it doesn't lose much. You don't have to worry about that. Now, one thing before you leave, you must come out here. This is on top of the living room, whereas that bedroom is on top of the kitchen.
So would you recommend other homeowner builders who are considering doing their own work to build this way?
I would, but they have to do a lot of homework and study before they get into it. A lot of testing of materials, what kind of local clay they can use, because there's no clay up in the northern valley. In the southern valley is where you find clay. You can shovel it right off the ground. I found landowners that let me just shovel it, and I bought some from Mondragon. They own some property down near the New Mexico border, really good red clay.
Wow.
So yeah, you have to do your research to know what materials and so it doesn't fall down. You asked me before about costs. I'm not a good cost person. I can't keep track of that. I guess it'll go by intuition and feel all along the way, rather than try to spend a lot of money on this and that. So I saved a lot of money on local materials and sweat equity. I worked for 4 years, nonstop. No girlfriends, no movies, no traveling. Well, I went to California for 5 weeks one time, but I was burned out after 2 years. I had to go somewhere. But after that, just that one break, 4 years, I lived in a little cabin right over here, and winter and summer, and just devoted myself to building this house because I needed a place to live,
Great.
like everybody, right?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for
Sure.
sharing it with us.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul.